In today's video, we're going to be taking a deep dive look into the upcoming pattern. There is a couple of areas of tropical interest that we're going to be dissecting today. Also, just going over the overall storminess around the nation. We do have an ongoing, pretty major cooldown happening. Now a little bit more exclusive for the eastern states. It was located over the Midwest, Great Lakes, but is starting to expand, or I should say kind of recede out of those areas and expand into the east. Mostly, we are going to see that one come to an end, but there is more potential cooldowns on the way after that we're going to be discussing later on. Let's just dive into things, and as we take a look here at the tropics, at least from the European ensemble model standpoint, we're going to look at the GFS ensemble models in a minute. We do see that each of these spaghetti plots is a different model. We see this area in the Caribbean, and so many people were saying this is going to be the next hurricane, it's going to come and hit Florida, but I've basically been pessimistic about this storm, if you will. I guess optimistic would be maybe be the better word, but really just suppressed to the south, not moving up into the Gulf, and it's continued to trend further and further south. And this is not the look that you would expect to see that would bring tons of development in a major storm. This looks like a non-event as of now, and anything's possible. I always want to remind you guys of that, but this is kind of what I had in mind for this system all along. Disregard these because this isn't really tropical development. This is mostly nor'easter activity, offshore storms. We do see this system here, which is a tropical area of interest, but we don't see much development whatsoever in this. And historically, this is an unfavorable track for this late in the hurricane season. It encounters a lot of sheer dry air along this track, and as of now, this model really doesn't have any of these developing into much of anything. As we take a look at the GFS ensemble model, we get really even more agreement. I mean, we get this really suppressed to the south look with this kind of Central America system, we should call it at this point, and that is the trend on both of these models. We also really don't get much of anything from this system. We really don't even see it get its act together even in the near future. The National Hurricane Center is still a little bullish on this system, showing near the flip of a coin as far as chances of development. So by far, this middle of the Atlantic system has a much better chance of development, as I've kind of stated over and over and over again. This one really, really low in the odds from the National Hurricane Center. So we're going to look at that in a little bit. Keep in mind, this is all nor'easter activity, not tropical, thankfully. Let's take a look here at the overall upcoming pattern. We do see that just by looking at the jet stream, we have a massive ridge out west and a large trough taking place in the east. A lot of areas are very cool. It's currently 1 p.m. here in Virginia, and it's actually 59 degrees, which is nearly our wintertime high that you would expect, kind of mid 50s for like December, January, February timeframe. So this is far below average temperatures, and I can't emphasize that enough. A lot of areas seeing their wintertime highs for the highs today, or pretty close to it at least, which is definitely a sign that you're below average, obviously. We do have snowfall happening in the mountainous northeast, as well as areas up there in Canada, as we do have a pretty strong low nearby for that New England region. We do see overall for the Pacific Northwest some storms taking shape there. As we move this towards tomorrow afternoon, let's move it towards tomorrow afternoon on Thursday, October 17th, there's that nor'easter off the East Coast, not really bringing much in the way of impacts to the East Coast. It's pretty far offshore, and we do see a couple of sprinkles perhaps reaching the coast, some wind, but this is not really a close call as far as the East Coast is concerned. As you take a look here at the Rockies, we do have a pretty substantial snowstorm taking place. In our next couple frames, it's going to look even worse, but we see the Cascades, Northern Rockies here, the Central Rockies, and even the Southern Rockies are going to get involved. Rainfall in the lower elevation areas, obviously, in more coastal regions. Those mountains seeing that snowfall primarily. As we move towards Friday, look at this. That low dissipates a little bit, but we have heavy snowfall ongoing, especially for Wyoming, Utah, Colorado. A pretty substantial snowfall event for this time of year. Western Canada, especially coastal Western Canada and those mountainous areas in there, are seeing heavy snowfall by the time we reach Friday the 18th. Obviously now by this point we have seen a rather substantial cooldown in the west drawn in by these storms, and therefore you see the opposite in the east. This is almost always how it's going to work. So we see this warm up in the east, kind of the balance of things is going to work like this 9 times out of 10. Very interesting. Saturday, we still have some snowfall now in the southern Rockies, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and perhaps some of New Mexico there. Not much else to discuss. Sunday here on the 20th, it's still lingering, and for Western Canada and a little bit of the Pacific Northwest, we have this storm system taking shape. Again, Canadian Cascades and Rockies seeing snowfall, rainfall for much of pretty much everywhere else. Monday on the 21st, again, very quiet, ridge-like pattern for most of the United States. We do have that storm system still impacting the Pacific Northwest. We do see the Canadian Rockies continuing to see heavier snowfall, and the United States Cascades is actually seeing a little bit of snowfall with this one. And really outside of that, we do have a few showers around for the Central Plains, and also for a bit of the far southeast, like Florida and maybe a little bit of Georgia. As we keep going, I want to take us straight towards Tuesday. This pocket of showers moves a little bit towards the northeast. We see kind of portions of central Canada seeing some rainfall, snowfall, respectively, depending on where you're at. For Wednesday here, that all kind of continues to trek eastward. We get a bit of a cold front in the east by the time we're reaching Thursday and Friday. It's a little mild, but we are seeing this kind of descending pattern, slight descending pattern, which could bring about some cooler temperatures overall. Your stronger low is located here in eastern Canada. Cold front stretching underneath. We do see a little bit of a warm up in the west, allowing for this to occur, but it's not stretching way up into Canada. That is probably why it's not stretching way down into the United States on the eastern end. That is pretty much what I'm seeing here. And then by the time we reach Friday, it's a lot of the same with some storms around for the central west and then a lot of the northern states, but very mild, very quiet by the time we reach the end of this pattern. Total precipitation here. As we take a look, just a couple of areas to note. We see overall much drier conditions in the east. The northwest is seeing some pretty active conditions, and also for nearby the Four Corner states. So let's look at the anomalies, and it really reflects that. I mean, pretty much nothing in the east. Four Corner states and surrounding Rocky states, we are seeing some above average precipitation, and also for some of the west here. So a more active pattern in the west, a little bit quieter here in the east as far as precipitation is concerned. Snowfall is going to reflect a lot of the same, obviously, and that's really to be expected this time of year, obviously. The Canadian Cascades and Canadian Rockies seeing impressive multiple feet of snowfall. We do see a few inches up to a foot for the Cascades of the United States. And then as we look at the Rockies, we're looking at inches in the grays and blues. We're looking at nearly 10 in the purples and pinks. And then some of those pastels in there, like we're seeing for southern Montana, southern Colorado, and northern Utah there. We are seeing likely close to a foot, maybe even 2 in some of those locations. As we take a look at the temperature pattern, we do see this ongoing cool down, again, very substantial. The greens is going to be indicative of 10 to 15 degrees below normal, or approximately a month ahead of schedule as far as this cold is concerned. So typically, 10 to 15 degrees is what you'd expect a month from now when we're looking at this time of year. So you're looking at nearly Thanksgiving temperatures for a lot of these areas, if not colder, in the Rock or Appalachian Mountain Range there. For some of those areas, we're likely seeing 2 months ahead of schedule, more like mid to late December temperatures. So it definitely depends on where you're at. As we kind of just keep progressing through this, the cold holds on for the east for the most part, especially the southeast here in the lows. We do warm up towards the end of the model run regardless. And look at this cool down for the west coast here at the end. This is always going to cause a surge of warmth here to the east of that type of a cool down along the west. I want to take a look here at the GFS model as well. This is starting at the 20th, and as we move forward, we see the same kind of thing, except we get this cold front here Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the northeast. A warm-up does ensue after that for the 25th, 26th, 27th, but we get another pretty major cool down here for the 29th, 30th, 31st. So we end things out on a colder note here on the GFS model. And overall, we end up with a colder pattern from this point forward for the east, with only a few days of warmth in there, and mostly warmer out west, although there is a few cool downs in there. So just to kind of give you guys an idea of what I'm seeing for the upcoming pattern and what the GFS model in particular is seeing as well, that is kind of the overview. As we take a look at the 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook, again, they're also quite optimistic as far as the lack of development here in the Central America area. 10% chance over the next 48 hours, 20% chance over the next 7 days. A really low chance of development, as I've been expecting since really the beginning of the discussions of this system began. So kind of going as expected there, for me at least. As we take a look here at the orange area crossing the Atlantic, they do have a 30% chance over the next 48 hours and a 40% chance over the next 7 days. It's not necessarily a high chance, but it definitely falls into a more medium territory. We could see if this one develops. The models obviously are thinking that it will not, but that doesn't mean that it won't, and we could see some development. And if it does and it moves into the Bahamas, I would want everybody to be on high alert for this one, because that would put it in a dangerous position for either the Gulf of Mexico or the East Coast. It could definitely be a very impactful system if it makes it through the next few days and actually does develop. So a bit of a question mark there. I'm leaning towards this one not developing, but I'm definitely much more open to this one developing than I am with this yellow area. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe. We do upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.